Madam, please record this, okay? Madam, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. I started recording.
Okay. Because yesterday's session we forgot to record.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shit. Then how will get the pics to Hannah? Pics, yeah, I have pics.
Yeah.
Ramakrishna sir posted to me pics.
Let's see. I mean,
The
otherwise.
pics I have. I have pics. Even I also joined, so I have also taken some few pics.
Okay. And then attendance also you take care here.
That it is available in my login only because I'm only the host. So.
Okay. Okay. To join, they don't need any UTEP ID, right, madam?
What's it? Pardon?
To join the web link, do they need any UTEP ID?
No, not yet. Just they have to click on link and password is 12345.
Okay. Okay, meanwhile, those who have joined, what I can do is I can just start something on what is the program that we are running for students at our institute. Okay, so yesterday I have covered this session for CSC department, and I have given them highlights of some of the important programs that Ministry of Education, through its innovation cell, has introduced into all of technical institutes, okay, what they call it as higher education institutes. And I'll just give you some highlight of these programs that we are also conducting, okay. And under the banner, what is termed as Institute Innovation Council, we are running this program that are organized by Ministry of Education. And the incubation facility that we have at our institute, that is Srinidhi Hub, that is the center through which all these programs are organized. Okay, so so one of the key and the most important program that is organized by Ministry of Education through MIC is your Smart India Hackathon. Okay, so Smart India Hackathon was an idea that started 4 years ago. And this was like a small hackathon event that was conducted by Pune University, where they wanted to see that students get involved into problem solving. So they have taken problem statements from their local government agencies, and those problem statements were given to students. And if you know the format of a hackathon, so in a given short period of time, students are required to build like maybe a prototype or come up with a proof of concept. Okay, and then this solution will be evaluated by the agency that has given the problem statement. And if they feel like this solution is solving the problem in a very unique way using less resources, then it will be adopted by that particular agency. So taking that first level of hackathon that was conducted, it was taken at national level, where many central government ministry departments, state government departments, and in fact, they have involved private companies and MSMEs to give their problem statements. Okay. And then for last 2 years, I have seen a wonderful response from our SNIST students, where close to around 65, 85 teams have participated, and in each team comprises of around 8 students. Okay. So over this past 2 years, we have seen excellent response from our students. And as you can see in the slide that I'm showing, there are close to around 350 problem statements. And all these are real-time problem statements, issues that are faced by these ministries. And I think my advice to students is that in the next edition of this Smart India Hackathon, students should take up these problem statements as their projects. Okay, and that's what today's discussion is about: how we can enlighten students, right, about taking up these challenges to build up their profile and build their career in turn. Okay, so it would be an excellent thing if we can take this journey as a startup or an entrepreneur. But I'm sure even then, if you want to join to a company also, all these experiences will help you greatly. Okay, and I've seen over the years that students who have participated in many of the activities at Srinidhi Hub have done excellently well, and they are placed in very good companies, and they are making a very good mark for themselves, and we are always boasting about them. Okay, so all these events, this hackathon, these problem statements are there. So usually students, what they do is they pick up a problem statement, and to their best level, they try to provide a unique, innovative solution that is offered to these ministries. They evaluate them, and they conduct a next level round where advanced or more refined level prototype has to be developed. Okay, once they develop that and they present it to these ministries, then if they like the solution, right, in working, then they will call you to national level competitions, national level hackathon, and there they will evaluate you and award you winning amount. Okay, and generous amount is offered to students, okay, who are participating in this event. Okay, not only that, through the Smart India Hackathon, there are a lot of training programs that are conducted by the Ministry of Education. So you already know about Swayam platform. There are also some very short training videos that are available at this platform. So students can go ahead and refer them. And in fact, students should also check on future. Let me just show you if I have it here. So a lot of training programs are offered in emerging technologies, right from IoT, AI, machine learning, okay? And most of these programs are at free of cost. I'm just showcasing, presenting it here. So go to this link, futureskills.nascom.com, okay? So a lot of training programs are offered in emerging technologies, okay? So let me see if I can find something, resources. So there are a lot of training programs that are offered from industry also. So, and they are of not just short duration, but they are also of 40-hour, 50-hour programs that are offered for free. I think students should enroll this. And I'm not sure about the certification part, but I think I'm sure towards the end they also offer some certificate to students. Okay. And this is at self-paced, so there is not like a fixed time where students have to go and participate. Okay. I'll just post this link in our chat here so that students can visit later. Okay. Okay, and all these links with Smart India Hackathon. Okay, so this links, I'm putting it in the chat. Okay, so please check this out, and there are some training videos that are available there for students. So you go ahead and refer them. Okay. So coming to another important competition that is held by Ministry of Education is your National Innovation Contest. Okay. Earlier, the name for this competition was prototype competition, but for the last year's edition, they have slightly modified the format of this competition. Now there are three levels of entries that you can do. First level is your idea level, which I'm highlighting. Okay, so idea level is where a student can participate at where the technology readiness level of their innovative solution that they are providing is at between 0 to 2, or they can participate at proof of concept level where the idea is refined, a lot of brainstorming has happened, some implementation of the features that they are claiming is already implemented, right? That comes at TRL level 3. Hello, Professor Prasad. I see you. I'm just covering time. Meanwhile, are you able to hear me? Sorry. Hello, sir. So what I'll do is, students, I'll stop here now. So our speaker has joined, Professor Prasad. Okay. He has been, means I have been, our institute has been associated with University of Hyderabad for the past 2.5 years. We are working very closely, and we are also one of their members in Technology Enabling Center. And we have been receiving a lot of guidance through University of Hyderabad. As you know, this is an institute of eminence, and Professor Prasad is playing a very key role there as a director of research and innovation. And he has a lot of expertise in implementation of this incubation policy. We are also have formulated our own draft, as you can see, for our own institutes, right? And the idea here is that we have to make sure that we are nurturing student and faculty with their innovation and startup aspirations. Through this policy, we are also trying to make sure that there is a streamline of the provisions that we want to make to our students. We want to strengthen our support mechanism, and then we also want to make sure that our ecosystem is at a nationally recognized level so that we can participate in incubation clusters, that is the next level of idea that is being discussed right now. So we want to do that, and just to give some idea to our students and to our Professor Prasad also, that I was mentioning to him other day that we have done fairly okay in this since the inception of this incubation center. So we have good participation from student side, and the sensitization we have given to students, close to around 75 plus patents have been filed, out of which 6 to 7 patents have been awarded. Around 20 patents have been already published. Our incubation facility is of fairly good size of around 10,000 square feet combined area. And then every year we see that 1,000 plus students participate in many of the activities that we conduct for them, either through ISC or either through the incubation and innovation training programs that we conduct for them, or through our other associations like the Indus Entrepreneurs Group and T-Hub also. So I welcome you, sir, and I thank you very much for considering our invitation to address our faculty and students with regard to this policy. Now I request Dr. Shruti Bhargava, who is the convener for this Institute Innovation Council. She is also professor at EC department. I request her to read profile of Professor Prasad, and then Professor Prasad can start his lecture, madam. So over to Dr. Shruti Bhargava.
Thank you, sir. I, Dr. Shruti Bhargava Chaube, convener of IIC, welcome you, sir, on behalf of Srinidhi Education, Srinidhi Group and Srinidhi Institute of Science and Technology. We'll welcome our guest, Professor G.S. Prasad, Director, Research, Innovation, Technology and Entrepreneurship at the University of Hyderabad. He coordinates the research and innovation activities at the university. He is also the Director of Aspire, Association for Scientific Pursuits for Innovative Research Enterprises, a Section 8 non-profit organization that guides the incubation and entrepreneurship activities at University of Hyderabad. He is a microbiologist by training and works in the areas of microbial diversity and industrial application of a yeast. He has more than 75 research publications, 10 patents, US, European, and Indian. He was visiting scientist at RIKEN, the Institute of Physical and Chemical Sciences, Japan, and Lebanese Institute of Plant Genetics and Crop Plant Research, that is IPK, Germany. He is serving his third term as an executive board member of the World Federation of Culture Collection, WFCC, that guides the activities more than 700 microbial resource centers all over the world. Before joining the University of Hyderabad, he worked 27 years at CSIR Institute of Microbial Technology, Chandigarh. He was a chief scientist and head of microbial type culture collection and GenBank, India's microbial resource center for 10 years, and then transformed it into a leading microbial resource center that can be compared with any of the best culture collection in the world. He was in charge of India's first International Depository Authority, IDA, under Budapest Treaty. He was also a country representative of Asian Consortium for the Conservation and Sustainable Use of Microbial Resources, ACM, a consortium of 14 Asian countries that collaborate on microbial resources. We welcome you, sir, and we feel honored to have you as a speaker with us. I request you to please start your session.
So thank you very much. Good afternoon, all of you, especially the young and enthusiastic students of Srinidhi Institute, who are the bright future and hope of this country, and of course our young faculty who are enthusiastic and guiding these bright students. So let me just share my presentation. Can you see it? Can you see the presentation, please?
Yes, sir. It is visible. Yes, sir.
Just see, is it moving?
Yes, sir. It's moving.
Okay, great. Thank you. So sometimes, no, if there is bandwidth problem, I may switch off this thing, video.
Video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you, Srinidhi Institute, for giving me an opportunity, and especially the management of Srinidhi Institute and my friend Amit Chauhan, who is the member of our Technology Enabling Center as a co-institute. Okay. Now, see, basically, the title of the talk given is legal and ethical aspects of the startups. But basically, I'll be covering a document which is known as National Innovation and Startup Policy for students and faculty. If you can see, normally you don't see the word students in many of the documents. Here specifically the name of the students come first before the faculty, right? So that means you know how much importance the government of India and various organizations are giving for students and to motivate and involve them in the innovation related activities. Okay, now yeah, see, after the independence, as a country, we are slowly moving from once dubbed as a underdeveloped country or probably developing country now to the developing country, and probably very soon we will be a developed country. See, green revolution, white revolution, blue revolution, and digital revolution contributed in their own way in development of our country. Yeah. See, as all of you know, as a country, we aspire to become $5 trillion economy by 2024. How do we achieve this? The best way is to convert the high quality technical and human resources capable of doing cutting edge research and innovation under entrepreneurship. Probably this is the only way to make our country a $5 trillion economy by 2024. So before going into the actual talk, let me cover some important terminologies. Suppose the entire document revolves around three important definitions: entrepreneurship, startup, and incubation center. See, entrepreneurship is an act of, so there is some echo.
I think it's the beep sound is coming because when students are trying to log in, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That I don't know
Fine.
how to mute that part.
Yeah, even I am just trying to mute my camera. I am unable to mute. So camera.
Yeah, I think it's coming from when students log in. Yeah.
Okay. Put it on. Yeah. So how do you define an entrepreneurship? It is an act of creating a business or businesses while building and scaling it to generate profit. The more modern entrepreneurship definition is also about transforming the world by solving big problems. This is all about the innovation and entrepreneur. Then what is a startup? A startup is a legal enterprise that is engaged in entrepreneurial activities, and it is the early stage of the life cycle of an enterprise where the entrepreneur moves from an idea stage to product or process or service development. Typically, a startup aims to meet a marketplace needed by developing or offering an innovative product or processes. And then what is an incubation center? So incubation center is basically, see, suppose whether it is a small plants, animals, or humans, up to certain age, they require a lot of nurturing. See, if a baby is born before time, he is always vulnerable and he is always kept in an incubation center incubation, the bioincubator, till he recovers completely. See, these incubation centers, this is the infrastructure provided. This is a design by to help solve some of the problems associated with running the early stage companies and nurture such companies by helping them to survive and go through the difficult and vulnerable early stages of the development. As I move along my lecture, I'll be just briefly explaining what at the University of Hyderabad we are doing with the related activities also. Okay, now, see, we are talking about the great resource, our students and human resources, what we have in this country. Suppose in terms of sheer numbers, India has an estimated 30 million students enrolled in the higher education institutes and around 7 million graduate TVET. That's a huge number. As a country, we have about 1,000 universities, state universities, private universities, and 54 central universities, 125 deemed universities, ISERs, NIPERs, National Institute of Importance, etc. So what all these higher education institutions are doing? See, most of the higher education institutes, they impart the quality education. By doing so, you are creating a pool of quality manpower. So this, as a rule, all the educational institutes impart the quality education, and they are trying, whether we call it quality manpower or not, they are producing the manpower. And some of the institutes, they also do the quality research. So when you are doing quality research, it results into research publications, and you are also producing doctorates, and you are also filing patents for part of your research what you are doing. As you move around this circle, when you come to the third quarter, so there are only maybe about 10% of the all higher educational institutes in the country who are doing the translational research and carrying out collaborative research in collaboration with industries and also providing the incubation facilities. So when you are doing all these activities, again, it results in the patents in collaboration with industries, and you are also creating the processes, and you are also creating the prototypes. But then the next question comes, actually what you are creating, how many of them are actually going to the market? So only handful of the organizations, probably some of the IITs, very few central universities, and some of the private organizations are actually taking the technology to the market. So when you have to take the technology to market, the prototypes have to be produced in for mass commercial production, and you also have to offer the innovative products and services. So keeping all these things in the mind and to inculcate the spirit of innovation, entrepreneurship, and startups, the All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE, come up with a startup policy in 2016. So see, you can see when it came from AICTE, it was basically meant for the engineering institutes. And the policy was circulated among the stakeholders for implementation as a startup and action plan. And it was suggested a more elaborative and comprehensive document involving all the higher education institutes is required. Then the MHRD has set up a 15-member expert committee to look into the various things, like suppose when you are when you are developing a process, technology, patent, innovation, etc., there are several issues involved. Who owns the IP? How do you share the revenue? What are the norms for technology transfer, etc.? To look into these issues, a committee consisting of 15 experts from IITs, IIMs, central universities, NITs, UGC, MHRD, AICTE was set up. And they specifically told that this policy should involve the students faculty and other members of the higher education, that means administrative staff, technical staff, etc. also. Okay, this is the composition of the committee. Professor Ashok Junjunwala was the chair of the IIT Madras, was the chairman, and Sukhbir Singh Sandhu of the Ministry of MHRD was a member, and Anil Sahasrabuddhe Sahab of AICT was a member. Secretary UGC Rajnish Jain sir was a member. IIM Bangalore Raghuram, from Anant Pandey, Deshpande from Pune. He is from the an industry, and director of IIT Kanpur, director of IIT Hyderabad. Our vice chancellor Professor Apparao Padli was also a member, and others were also the member. And Dr. Abhay Jaref, Chief Innovation Officer of the MHRD, was the member secretary of this committee. Yeah, and this committee came up with a National Innovation and Startup Policy 2019 for students and faculty. Okay, so it was launched by the Honorable Minister of Human Resource Development on 11th September 2019, and the policy intend to guide the higher education institutes to promote students and faculty-driven innovations and startups. See, basically what this document says, that it document always says that these are only guidelines, and it suggests that the higher education institutes should leverage the potential of the students' problem solving and entrepreneurial mindset and promote a strong intra and interinstitutional partnerships. Okay, basically the NISP 2019 envisages an education system oriented towards startups and entrepreneurship opportunities for students and faculty. As we understand, innovation still is not an epicenter of education. Our epicenter of education is always what percentage of mark we are getting and what kind of job we are going to get. So in order to have this innovation mindset, it requires a cultural and attitudinal shift. So we all know innovation and startup should be the primary fulcrum of our education. So it basically envisages the higher education institutes to support their students, staff, and faculty in innovation and entrepreneurship related activities. It also why there is a need of a document like NISP, because it wants to bring a uniformity across all educational institutes in innovation related activities, and at the same time it also wants to give a flexibility, and it, as I told you earlier, it also says that it is just a guideline. Okay, it has got various chapters. I'm just going to move one by one. Basically, it says that there should be strategies and governance in place for promoting the entrepreneurship. So how do you do this? Each higher education institute should formulate a startup policy in accordance with the guidelines given in the NISP. It should be in the form of a mission statement, and there should not be any stringent control systems, and there should not be any imposition of this entrepreneurship and innovation related activities. It suggests the responsibility to lead this activity should be given to a senior person at the level of dean, director, or equivalent position with less hierarchy and autonomy. That means the person who is given the responsibility should be able to act independently with not much hindrance from the administration. And it also envisages there should be a promotion of inter and intra-institutional relations. And it also says that, see, when you are planning to create a system or put up a system in the place, you need resources. It says that 1% of the organization's annual budget should be allocated for these activities. It also suggests that we should be able to raise funds from the diverse sources from the various state and central agencies. And also, you may be aware that these days you can get funding for incubation and innovation activities from the industries under CSR funding. under Companies Act. Of course, you can also tap your sponsorships and donations from alumni network. So this is also important. It also suggests that all higher education should join the Institutional Innovation Council network, and they also should participate in the Smart India Hackathon. They also should participate in the Atal Ranking of Innovations. This is known as area ranking. I understand as an organization, I think from my friend Amit Chauhan, I understand that Srinidhi Institute is very active in all these activities. And you also stood up very well in the Atal rankings that were released in the last year. Now I am going to share what we are doing as a university in all these activities. Suppose we participated in the Smart India Hackathon and our one of our team won first prize last year. We are also may not be as active as your teams, but we are also participating in the Institutional Innovation Council. We have also participated in the Atal ranking of institutions in the innovation activities. We are also implementing the SIP policies and international hackathons also. Okay, so now coming to Atal rankings that were released in 2020, as a central university, we were put along with the other institutions of national importance and central universities, and we have to compete with the best of the best in the country, like the all IITs, NITs, etc., IISc also. With that tough competition, we stood 10th in the Atal ranking in the institutions of national importance. The first being IIT Madras, second is IIT Bombay, third is IIT Delhi, fourth is Indian Institute of Science. As you can see, all among these 10, 8 are Indian institutes and 1 is NIT. And only we are there as a central university to figure in these rankings. Okay, this is the achievement certificate, what we got. Now, see, when you want to create a innovation entrepreneurial ecosystem, it has to be known to the entire, all the stakeholders in an organization. How do you do this? You do it in the form of workshops, talks, etc., like what you are doing today and what we have been doing for the last couple of years. And you have to formulate a student and startup policy. Probably Amit was explaining that before I joined. And you have to develop the entrepreneurship and ship beyond the boundaries. Suppose as a University of Hyderabad, if we have certain capabilities, we should help the people in the vicinity. Then you also have to have the international partnerships using the bilateral and multilateral. What we are doing as a university, I'll there. See, we can have the international exchange programs, internships, engaging international faculties in the teaching and research. As an organization, we have about 70 international students on the campus. I was told by our international coordinator, this year we have received about 2,000 applications. I don't know how many of them we are going to accommodate this year in our university. We also have MOUs with the Princeton University and Australian National University, etc. Yeah. See, and you have to create the startup enabling institutional infrastructure, and you have to create the pre-incubation and incubation facilities for nurturing innovation and startups. So as you know, without innovation, new enterprises likely are unlikely to succeed. So innovation to enterprise to financial success is the mantra. So we have to create the facilities for supporting the pre-incubation and incubation by mobilizing the internal and external sources. And there should be 24/7 access for the students, faculty. Once you create these facilities, there should be 24/7 access to the faculty, students in the incubation and pre-incubation centers. So one important thing is, as a educational institutes, we have certain limitations. We are bound by certain rules. to overcome these rules, what this NICIP suggests is you create a separate incubation cum technology commercialization unit which can spearhead these activities, because once this is called a Section 8 company, once you have this Section 8 company, you are not bound by the university and UGC rules. Then you have the more freedom to take decisions, and it will be less, you will have less administrative hassles. Okay. See, now coming to, see, when I'm explaining what is there in the document, I am also simultaneously explaining we as a institute what we have done at the University of Hyderabad. Suppose all our students and alumni, they can be part of our innovation clubs, and by virtue of a students or alumni, they can be members of our innovation councils. We have framed the guidelines for innovation initiatives. We also conduct the workshops, lectures, and Smart India hackathons, etc. And we have created a pre-incubation facility. And once in a while, we call for applications from the our students and alumni, and we provide some seed support and give them free incubation space for about 6 months to 1 year to test their idea. If they are successful, and we have 3 incubation centers in our institute, which they put together, they accommodate about 45 incubate startups. Suppose the one TBI, which is supported by DST, it was established in 2010. TIDE, which was supported by Ministry of Information Technology, was established in 2015. And the third one, BioNest, which was established in 2018 with support from BIRAC under DBT. As I was telling you, see, when these incubation centers are under the administrative control of the university, you are bound by the rules in the procurement, recruitment, etc. That's why the document says that it is better to establish a special purpose vehicle. That is a Section 8 company. We have established a Section 8 company with the name Aspire, Association for Scientific Pursuits in and Innovative Research Enterprises. And we have brought all these 3 incubation centers under the Aspire. And now we have less hassle in the recruitment of the manpower and guiding them and guiding the incubation centers, and especially in the procuring the equipments, etc. Why this is important, I will come to you in the subsequent slides. Okay. See, how do you nurture the innovations and startups? By establishing a mechanism for easy creation and nurturing of startups. The startups can be by students, they can be UG, PG, PhD, etc., or by the staff. See the flexibility. This document says that they can be including the temporary staff or project staff also, and projects and alumni. So once we create this facility, you need to have the support. This support can be in the form of pre-incubation or incubation facility to the startups by the students, etc. See, once you have, assuming that you have developed a incubation facility and your staff are students come up with something, there should be a policy for licensing the IPR, etc. Okay. Then, so this also gives flexibility for the students, entrepreneurs. They may earn credits for working on innovative prototypes, business models. They may also allow to opt for the startup in place of their mini project, major project, seminars, etc. And they should be given credit for the same as a project. The startup may be interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, involving one or more students. But only thing is, when you are talking about the legal aspects, if you are doing a research project in collaboration with your research supervisor, that should not be a part of your startup, because there is a conflict of interest that may be supported by DBT, DST, or AICTE, etc. Okay. And the interesting thing is, students should be allowed to use the, see, when you are having you want to register a startup, you should have an address. So it says that students should be allowed to use the institution address for their startups. See, they should be allowed to sit for a examination even if they have the less attendance. Even more important is they can, in order to participate in the entrepreneurship or innovation or startup activity, they can take a semester or year break from their startups and rejoin the academics to complete the course. The entrepreneurs may earn credits for their efforts while creating an enterprise. But how do you do this? The university or higher education institute should create a committee to evaluate the startups and the student and consider giving appropriate credits for their academics. And similarly, the staff and faculty also may be allowed to take a semester off. The students and faculty and staff may be allowed to use the infrastructure facilities established. It may be part-time entrepreneurship, mentoring support on regular basis, facilitation in idea, creativity, etc. And connecting them to the seed fund providers, angel institutes, etc. When they develop a IPR technology, the higher education institutes should help them in licensing the IP or technology. Okay. Okay, now then it comes to the what are the formalities? Assuming a student or faculty has developed a technology, and how you want to suppose you, or if you want to they want to use your incubation facilities as an institute, what are the models there for how do you facilitate them? By charging a rent or charging an equity or a mixture of equity plus rent. So depending on what model you are using, there are guidelines. If the institute wants to take a equity, the equity should be in around 2 to 9.5% equity from the startup, etc. Provided if the support was provided by the institute for generating the IPR. Suppose if when it comes to the equity, not more than 20% of the shares should be given to the institute. So faculty or staff can spend up to 20% of their time in the startup activities. If it is more than that, they have to take the sabbatical leave. Faculty, interestingly, another important thing is if any faculty or staff would like to hold an executive or managerial position in the startup for 3 months, it is okay. If it is for more than 3 months, they should go on sabbatical or take leave without pay, etc. But of course, it depends. The institutes probably can, there is a flexibility. The institutes can probably pay, draft their own guidelines. But see, suppose if you insist that as an incubation center, we want only equity. So as I told you earlier, the equity should not be more than 2 to 9.5%, depending on what kind of facilities you are providing. Suppose when a higher education institute is insisting that we want only equity model, then the startup should be given a cool off period. What is this cool off period? So let them incubate in the facility and let them think over whether really they want to give the equity, go to the equity model or rent model or mixture of equity and rent model. They can be given time up to 3 months and they can decide. As I told you earlier, you can extend the startup facilities to the alumni of the institute and of course as well as outsiders, because in order to survive, the incubation centers require money that you can get from outsiders. Okay. So every faculty may be encouraged to be mentor at least one startup. That is what we are doing in the science and engineering faculties. Of course, our management faculty are slowly coming forward. Product development and commercialization, as well as participating in the should be added to the bucket of faculty duties. As of now, see the problem why most faculty do not come forward to the innovation, entrepreneurship, even filing a patent and technology development, because most of the times a faculty is assessed, whether it is a college or university or IITs, etc. By, see, as I told you in one of the first slides, most of the higher educational institutes, the primary responsibility is teaching and to produce and create a quality manpower. And of course, as I told you, many of them are slowly venturing into the research activities. They get funding, they get publications, they get faculty, they get patents, etc. When a faculty goes for a recruitment or evaluation, promotions, etc., most of the parameters that are taken into consideration in the form of APA scores, etc., are what you teach, how many publications you have, how many projects you have, how much external cash funding you got, and how many what is that talks you have delivered, how many conferences you have participated, and where is the importance for the innovation and incubation and patent commercialization of technologies, etc. Unless the evaluation process changes, faculty are not willing to come forward to take up these activities. The first thing they ask, what I am going to get if I'm spending my time in this, how my API score is going to improve. So that's why it suggests the institutes also need to update, change, and revise the performance evaluation policies for the faculty and staff, as I was mentioning also. And more importantly, see, when you are creating all these facilities, you may run into legal problems. So that should be avoided, and there should not be any liability or legal hassles to the educational institute. That's why it is always better to create a Section 8 company, which a separate entity. Yeah. So now coming to assuming once you have encouraged your faculty and students and alumni to become entrepreneurs, incubators, innovators, etc. So let us assume they have developed the technologies. They have also developed the IPR. Who will be the owner? Who will be owner of that IP? And how it is shared? As a rule, if the funding for an IP or a technology comes from an organization, any IP that is issued, it is granted to the organization. Suppose if as an inventor, I am filing a IPR, I am the inventor, my organization is the assignee. That means mostly the organization will have the rights to commercialize that. The document says that inventors and institute together license the product or IPR to any commercial organization. The license fee could be either or a mix of upfront fee or one-time technology transfer fee, royalty as a percent of sale price, shares in the company licensing the product. Suppose I'll share some of my experiences. One of my colleague has developed a rubbing machine. The rubbing machine is, suppose most of us use the LEDs, cell phones, etc. When they are developed, they have very rough surface. These are liquid crystals. and he has developed a small portable rubbing machine which smoothens this surface, and he has transferred this technology to a company. So now we are negotiating with that company saying that you give us an upfront payment and also royalty in the form of maybe 5% royalty for each machine sold. Suppose recently when the COVID came, one of my colleague is developing antibodies in horse in collaboration with CCMB and WINS Biopharma. So now how do we do that? Suppose there are three partners, CCMB, University of Hyderabad and WINS Biopharma. So all have got different roles. So what we have negotiated for a royalty in the percentage of, they should be give us 5% royalty in the sales price once the product comes into the market. Of course, most of the third one is shares in the company for licensing the product. Most of them will not agree for that. Okay. See, once suppose there is another thing. So I may be a inventor of a IPR, but when if I want to use the IPR and want to incubate it in my own university, I should take the license and start a company, and I can pay up to 4% royalty to my organization. And of course, if it is a software product, it can be more. When it comes to the shares, if I have to give shares, I can give 1 to 4% shares. And again, if it is a software product, it can be more. Okay. So the last one, yes, the last point, if you can see, institute may not be allowed to hold equity as per current statutes. Every organization is basically, it is a educational institutes. As of now, all educational institutes are not allowed to hold equity in any company. That is the reason the document says that you have to create a special purpose vehicle that is called Section 8 company. And the Section 8 company can hold the equity on behalf of the educational institutes, like what we have established as per the Section 8 company. Okay. Okay, now the question comes. If the IPR or product was developed by the innovators not using any institute facilities and outside the office hours, and it is not part of the curriculum, who should be the owner of that IPR?
I think the stake should go more to the, I think, faculty, right? In that case.
Yeah. So, Amit sir, I'm just taking this call. Manbhushan garu, నేను ఒక హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్ తర్వాత కాల్ చేస్తాను, టాక్లో ఉన్నానండి. హలో. Yeah. So, sir, am I audible? I think my mic is on the other side, right?
No, it's audible. You are clear. Yeah.
No, mic. Sorry, my camera settings.
Camera is, I think, somewhat shifted.
Shifted camera. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I did not notice that. Yeah. Sorry for that. Am I clear so far?
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, actually, the document says that. So, interesting thing, Amitji. See, you may be developing it outside the office hours, etc. But when the crucial question comes, directly or indirectly, some of the faculty members may be mentoring. And you are using the office space, you are using the university or educational institutes, internet, etc. And then in that case, who will be the owner? Ideally, again, both, but in this case, mostly 90% of the ownership should go to, maybe 70-80% should go to the student or faculty member who develops, but the document clearly says that if there is a dispute in the ownership, a 5-member committee should examine the issue and settle the issue. See, and it also says that then what is the role of the institutional IPR cell and incubation centers? They are basically, see, whatever the incubation center has to get, that is already we have discussed in terms of what royalty, etc. they can get, or what equity, that we have discussed. So except that the IPR cell and the incubation center, they are only facilitating by providing the facilities and services to the students and faculty. So interestingly, if the institute is paying for filing the patent and they have a say in transferring the technology. Suppose as of now, what we follow in the university is, if a colleague of mine comes to me saying that I want to file a patent, so we have a patent committee. We tell them, so there is, first of all, they have to get a patentability search report. So if they come with a patentability search report which says that it is worth filing a patent, then I go to the patent committee. And if when the patent committee approves, then the institute funds the patent. So if the inventors are using their own funds and not institute's patent, they should have a say in patenting. But as of now, we are not using this provision because it lands us in the trouble at a later stage. Again, the ownership. See, sometimes what happens, unknowingly, some of the faculty file the patent on their own name. Then we request them to transfer it to the university name. Okay, in the last couple of years, what as a University of Hyderabad has done to institute the mechanisms in place. It has created a state-of-the-art infrastructure for nurturing the innovation and entrepreneurship. It has created a professor of innovation studies. It has put an IPR cell and IPR policy in place. We have put guidelines for undertaking industry-sponsored and consultancy projects. We have created a faculty enterpriseship scheme. And now we are extending the same to the other staff members and students also. We also have a research policy of the UOH. And we have also created the awards for the young faculty who are below 45 years. And this year onwards, we have created awards for the faculty who are below 55 and who are below 65. These are supported by Dr. Reddy's Foundation. And we also support the best innovative projects for encouraging students in the form of pre-incubation facility. We also have innovation clubs in all the science and engineering schools. We also organize the BioQuest, ChemFest, boot camps, startup ethras, entrepreneurship training programs, etc. These are the some of the photographs of those events. Okay, so this is the guidelines to undertake consultancy projects. And this was approved by our university executive council. Okay, now see, once you are setting up such facility, you need people who spend their time and effort and energy and creating, nurturing and upkeeping such facility and mentoring the students and faculty. See, you should recruit the staff that have strong inclination towards the innovation and entrepreneurship activities they should have the relevant industrial experience and attitude in fostering the innovation and entrepreneurship cultures. So you can also always take the external subject matter experts or alumni that can be engaged for strategic advice and bringing in skills which are not available internally. Amitji, when it comes to know, because I think probably as a member of our tech and a member of Srinidhi Institute, as a member of this group, we are organizing several such events. We also request your students also should take part, because this will be sharing of the energy, resources, etc.
Certainly, certainly,
Because,
sir. I know
yeah,
last
because
time.
yeah. Okay. So faculty and staff should be encouraged to do courses on innovation, entrepreneurship, etc. See, as I was telling earlier, there should be some reward for the faculty, staff, etc. in the forms of sabbatical, lab space, entrepreneurship activities, etc. But only thing is, whatever research is funded by other funding organizations like DBT, CSR, AICT, industry sponsorships, etc., there should not be any conflict of interest with whatever we are doing as a startup. And a performance matrix should be developed and used for evaluation of the annual performance of the faculty and staff. This is what I was emphasizing in one of my earlier slides. Okay. And you have to create the innovation pipeline and pathways for entrepreneurship. See, unless you are educating the students and giving them exposure to the innovation and pre-incubation activities at the earlier stage, you cannot create a pipeline. You cannot create entrepreneur startup incubation centers overnight. See, if you are creating a pre-incubation, you are creating a process and you are giving them an opportunity to identify a problem, find a solution, and they should come up with a proof of concept, and which can then be in collaboration with external agencies, ecosystem enablers, then that can be incubated in one of the incubation centers. See, if you are giving them an opportunity in terms of internship, co-sharing experience, organizing competitions, encouraging in participation of innovation and business competitions, etc., you are encouraging the students to become a part of an innovation ecosystem of the education institute. Suppose now it comes to, if you want to, or your faculty or a student wants to start a startup, a norm should be in the place. That is what I have shown. We have already put a system in the place. So see, normally, suppose you have put a set up a incubation center, and you also have a startup what is that startup facility manual in place. Then how are you going to encourage? See, if you want to take the technologies, ideally the technologies or IPR that originated in the institute should be taken up first. When you are taking them forward, the role of faculty may vary. It can be a owner, or it can be a mentor, it can be a consultant, or it can be a board of member of the startup. Work on the developing a policy on conflict of interest. Conflict of interest normally comes, as I was telling you earlier, are you using your research activity for your startup, etc., or if you are involving any of your family members, immediate family members, there should be a written communication to the committee set up by the institute, and you should inform them that such and such family members will be a part of your startup. Okay, faculty startup may consist of faculty members alone, or with the students, or with other faculty members or alumni. Okay. So as I told you earlier, if you are holding a executive or managerial position in a startup for 3 months, it is fine. If you want to have it for, if it is a full-time position, ideally the faculty member should take the sabbatical or leave without pay, etc. And as I told you earlier, they should clearly separate and distinguish the ongoing research at the institute and the work conducted at the startup. They should not accept any gifts from the faculty. And see, sometimes what happens, if you take our case, we have an incubation facility in the 3rd floor of the our School of Life Sciences, and ground floor, first floor, and second floor, we have our School of Life Sciences laboratories. Some of our faculty, suppose there are 60 faculty, out of 60 faculty, 5 faculty have started their own startups in the third floor. So it says that you should not, some of your students are working in your research labs, and you should not use the research staff students for your startup activities, or you should not use the staff of the startup activities for your research activity. That is where the conflict of interest comes. There should be very clear demarcation with the startup activities from your research activities. So I was telling you, like, see, when you have an incubation center right in your School of Life Sciences, so what is the advantage? So we request all our 60 faculty to be mentors of one or the other incubation facility, other startups in our both TBI and TIDE, which together have about 35-40 startups. The selection of faculty started by an outside and the selection of faculty started by an outside national or international accelerator. They can be given a leave of 1 semester or more, depending on the committee duly constituted by the institute. Okay, now how we are doing it in our institute. Suppose I told you we have established a incubation center TBI in 2010 with support from DST, and the second incubation center TIDE came up with support from MIT in 2015, and the BioNest came up in 2018 with support from BIRAC. And these were at that time 2018-19, all these were under the university. And mostly when TBI and TIDE were there, we were not charging any, we are charging very nominal rent from them, and we were not holding any equity. But when the BioNest came and we have expanded, we have about 25 startups here, and we have evolved a model like what was mentioned in the NISP. In fact, we were much ahead of the NISP. We came up with a proposal depending on the space they are occupying. We have devised a policy. The equity can share from range from 3% to 5%, not more than 5%. And of course, and otherwise, if they are not interested, they can pay rent for the on square feet. And there is also a provision they can pay half of the rent and half of the equity also. And as I was telling you, because as an education institute, you cannot hold the equity in the companies. And that's why we have created a Section 8 company, Aspire, and brought all these 3 incubators under the Section 8 company. But all the board of directors members of the Section 8 company are the university professors and the vice chancellor, the ex officio chairman. And we also have some outside members, and we will be expanding that. And this is broadly coordinated. These activities are broadly coordinated by the Research, Innovation, Technology and Entrepreneurship Unit. And the other arm of this is the Technology Enabling Center. Under this, we conduct various activities and coordinate and collaborate with various government and private institutes. And I am not going into all those details. Okay. So it also suggests that every organizational institute should have a toolkit on innovation and startup for open access. That means you have to create this toolkit, and this should be available for all the staff and faculty, students, etc. in your university or institute website. So establish student clubs, bodies of innovation, IPR, startup, etc. And you also should reward the faculty, students, staff in the form of innovation entrepreneurship awards. And the faculty and students should be taught. See, every startup may not become successful. If you see worldwide, I think only 3 to 5% startups succeed, right? See, you also encourage that more number of students participate in projects that are innovative and entrepreneurship in nature. If possible, you can also start the MBA, PG diploma in management in innovation and entrepreneurship activities, etc. Okay. It also suggests that you collaborate and co-create business relationships and knowledge exchange. So develop a policy or guideline document that I think the Amit ji has already done. Knowledge exchange through collaboration and partnerships that we are doing, and we will be expanding these activities. Mechanism to ensure maximum exploitation of entrepreneurship activities with industrial and commercial collaborations. One thing is very certain, whatever research we are doing, whatever IP we are doing, if there is an involvement of an industry since inception of the project, if and they guide you in a different way. I'll tell you an example. Suppose we have a young faculty by name Kotesh Rao. He is trying to develop a lightweight springs which are useful in various engineering industries. So what he has done, he is doing it in collaboration with a German institute, and the funding agency has insisted they should involve the industry from the beginning, both from the German side and in Indian side. And they also insisted if they are there only for namesake, they may attend the meetings and give some suggestions and leave. And the funding agents insisted almost 50% of the funding should come from the those industries. So the University of Hyderabad has requested the Bhushan Steels and they have kindly agreed for funding, and they are now actively participating in the project. See, when you have such involvement from the industry since inception of the project, the chances of that going to market is very high. Okay. See, once you create the entrepreneurs ecosystem, there should be a periodical assessment actually how it is working. The pre-incubation, incubation, and entrepreneurship education should be evaluated at regular intervals with a defined evaluation parameters. The information on impact of the activity should be actively used while developing and reviewing the entrepreneurship activity. Measuring the success should be in the terms of sustainable goals, financial, technological impact in the market. Suppose when I say that as a university, we have 3 incubation centers, close to 40-45 startups. When we are evaluated or when we are doing self-assessment after a couple of years, where do we stand? Actually, how many of these startups, 40-45 startups, could succeed? So most of them may be starting their startup with their own funding. How many of them were successful in getting external funding, maybe from DST, DBT, AICT, or Startup India, or venture capitalist, or industry? How many of them can take their product to market? And at the same time, how many of these 40-45 incubators are our own students or faculty? That is also measured. See, when you are creating an ecosystem and creating to inculcate a innovation mindset in your faculty and students, if I say that all 40-45 of my incubation startups are outsiders, then what did I do? What what kind of impact I have created in my role as a director of right or coordinator of R&D? So out of this 40, 45, startups, we have about 10 to 15, 12 are our own faculty or students or alumni. So that is satisfying for us. So in the ultimate run, commercial success is the only measure in a long run for any startup. Okay. So now the way forward. See what the document says this, it tries to give a uniform and successful implementation of the National Innovation and Startup Policy for the students. Again, I am insisting it is for the students, faculty of all the HIEs across the nation in the main object. Why I am repeatedly stressing the students, etc. And whatever recent successes we are seeing, it is mostly the students. They may be from IIMs, IITs, or a simple higher educational institutes. When I first met Dr. Amit in one of the MHRD organized events, he came with a team which has developed a wonderful drone. Believe me, in my life, that was the first time I saw a drone practically in front of my eyes. It was amazing, and it within no time, it just went up, came down, and flew at a particular height. Later on, Dr. Amit shared some of the videos of how it can be used for spraying the pesticides, etc. That was remarkable. Hats off to the Dr. Amit, the team, and Srinidhi Institute. I mean, you are doing great. So in order to achieve this, full-fledged support of education institute will be important. And as I told you, whatever the NISP are there, these are only guidelines. If required, the institute may develop their own comprehensive guidelines and policy on innovation and startups with greater details. And there can be flexibility in terms of how to share royalties, how to share equity, etc. and etc. See, the institutes are expected to make use of already available infrastructure as much as possible to achieve the implementation of suggestive measures. See, when you are talking about developing infrastructure, everywhere you need two things. One is money and one is manpower. See, as a University of Institute spent couple of crores for building the incubation facilities. Okay. Now, as I was telling earlier, Indian Higher Education Institutes is considered to be one of the largest in the world in terms of number of institutes. Our students are among the top 3 in the largest startup ecosystems. And during last 10 years, Indian higher educational institution system has grown up by 75%. We have close to 3 million students and 41,000 educational institutes. And how can we reach the 5 trillion GDP by 2024? By creating the excellency in both qualitative and quantitative education, making it globally relevant, competitive and industry relevant, focusing on self-employment, innovation, skills, entrepreneurship among the faculty and students. See, ultimately, if you can see how as a country we are performing. See, as a country in 2015, we were standing at 81st place in 2015, and 2016 we came to 66, and 2020 48. We have jumped several places. This is all through innovation, technology, etc. what we are doing in the last couple of countries. And as a country, our country aims to become or to stand in the top 30 very soon, and most probably I am sure in the 2021-22 we will be there. Yeah. So now coming to what the Technology Enabling Center, what we have created with support from DST. I will not take much time because already we have crossed 1 hour. This is basically to support our own students and to act as an interface between the university faculty, etc., and also to interact with the nearby organizations. And we have a system in place. Yes, this is how we are collaborating. Srinidhi Institute is one of our active collaborators, and as I told you earlier, Dr. Amit is also a part of our project advisory group, which we are going to hold a meeting very soon, probably in the next 10 days. There are some other organizations. We have selected 6 from Telangana and 6 from Andhra Pradesh. And we also have an Innovation Facilities Center supported by NRDC in our institute. And we are also part of a Anprindia program. This program actually is supported by Erasmus and European Union, in which University of Hyderabad, along with 7 other higher education institutes of the country and 7 other educational institutes from European countries. Only issue is this program is specifically for female students. So again, when we are organizing some programs, I'll be requesting your organization to participate in such programs. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, sir. So before we move to the next part, I request our participants, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat box so that Professor Prasad can answer them for you. So meanwhile, I also have some questions, sir, if you don't mind.
Please, sir, please.
Thank you, sir. So I thank you once again for sharing your insights in implementation of the incubation policy. You have rightly pointed out that motivating students and faculties through this policy is the key thing to make it success. And then for faculty, you have mentioned that there should be some provisions in evaluation also.
Yeah, incentives.
Right. With regard to their APIs. So in our institute, what we have done is we have created this 360 degrees evaluation, where their participation in these activities are also accounted for. There are points that are awarded to the faculty based on the hours and achievements that they are getting. And then you also have stressed upon quality of research, because for a special purpose unit, for it to be successful, commercialization of their IPs and their startups success matters a lot. So with that regard, I have a question, sir, because we have taken the step of establishing the facility, and obviously we are also looking at taking this journey forward and having ourselves recognized as a Section 8 company. So when do you think we should make that decision to go for Section 8? Because self-sustenance is a major issue once we cut that umbilical cord from the institute, right?
Exactly.
What is your suggestion on that?
And probably, what I failed to mention, what I forgot to mention is, see, when we are charging rent from the startups, suppose like you were telling, self-sustaining is a key once the umbilical cord is cut. See, as of now, we are getting funding from BIRAC. Suppose, let us take our Bionest. So we have taken a policy decision. Whatever we get in terms of rent, that will be utilized for maintaining the faculty, maintaining the facility. And 10% of this goes to 80% will go to the Bionest, and 10% goes to the university, and 10% goes to the Aspire, the Section 8 company. So that is how we have evaluated the self-sustaining mode. The entire money is not going to the university. Only 10% goes to the university, 10% goes to the Section 8 company. Yeah.
Okay, sir. And then you also have mentioned about consultancy policy, especially because once you we have formulated that policy at institute level. But once we go to incubation center, there should be separate policy for consultancy, because now faculty can also get involved with the startups over there. So should we have our own consultancy policy independent of the institute policy for incubation center?
Yeah, if you are forming a Section 8 company, there should be ideally a separate policy also. But there is a small issue. See, I may be a member of the as per Section 8 company, but basically I am also a faculty of the university. Suppose when we form the consultancy guidelines, so what we do, you can offer two types of consultancy in the form of industrial project where you are using the facilities of the organization, right? And the other one, you are not using any facility of the organization. It is only advisory consultancy without using any facility. And what we have formed, our guidelines says that if I am giving only advisory consultancy, I can take up to 75-80% of the consultancy fees as a faculty. So 15-20% can goes to the university, and besides that there will be a overhead charges, because as a university, as a faculty, when I am collaborating with somebody, all the related documents are handled by the university. So there are certain overhead charges for the university. So this is advisory consultancy. If you are taking industrial projects where you are using the institute facilities, instruments, etc., the rules are separate. There 40% goes to the organization, 60% goes to the faculty. Yeah.
Right, sir. So one request I have is if you can share the policies that you have
Sure.
formulated. So we
I'll
will
share them, and probably we'll be revising them soon also.
Okay.
But I'll share. No problem.
And same goes for IPR policy also.
Sure, sir. Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you, sir. And then certainly you have also talked about the cool-off period, especially for startups, because when we talk about giving provisions, and as you know that you are part of our expert committee in our formulation of incubation policy, other experts have also suggested that there should be less stake from the incubation center side in order to initially support the faculty, and they asked us to segregate these startups who are maybe at very early stage of their innovation or startup journey, somebody who has already developed a product or looking to scale up. So with that regard, we are also looking to see how this cool-off period can apply before we start charging them.
See, I think the cool-off period, and we also talked about the pre-incubation facility.
Yes.
The pre-incubation facility is given to any faculty or students when they are testing their idea. They are not sure whether they'll be successful, and they would like to start a startup. So that can be 6 months to 1 year with some sort of seed fund, whatever we can afford. That is before starting their startup, right? And the cool-off period, what I was mentioning is, they have decided to start the startup. They started it. At that time, they are not clear whether they want to give the equity or want to pay the rent or want to give the equity plus rent mode. So you give them the place, give them the time to decide whether they want to give the equity, they want to pay the rent, or any of them. They may not be able to decide immediately.
Right.
So it can be 3 months to 6 months. When they take a decision, say after 6 months, it should be ideally effective from the retrospective date, the date they were given the place.
Right, sir.
Am I clear?
So, yes, sir. We got that. So any questions from our participant side or members of ISC? Because many of them are still trying to, because we have just drafted the policy.
Yes,
and
sir.
then they are still going through this policy document because
Yeah.
many provisions are given to them. I wanted
Hmm.
students should understand so that they can take advantage of it, because
Yeah.
policy, if they are not utilized, they just will
Yeah.
remain on paper.
No,
So
Amit, that is the reason why I covered just what is there in the NISP as a guideline.
yes,
As an institute, what we are doing. I did not go into really legal and ethical aspects because that becomes too complicated at this stage.
absolutely. Okay.
First of all, we should know as a student or faculty what is there for me in the document, what policies my organization is going to put them in the place, how that is helpful or encouraging to me. Once I know that, then subsequent things will follow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, sir. So with that, I would like to give you a vote of thanks for considering once again our invite to join our conduct this session for us. And I know when we had our initial interaction and when we had
Yeah.
our students over there at your facility, you have
Mm.
given very good encouragement to our students.
Yeah.
And with that initial encouragement, in the first edition of this prototype competition that was held at national level, as you know, hundreds of ideas have come to the regional competition, and from
Exactly.
there, two of our ideas got selected at national level, and one got
Great.
funded for developing the product. Now they are in the process of developing.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
They have even registered a startup company at our facility,
Very
and
good.
now we have close to around 12 faculty and student startups that are there at our facility.
Very
And
good. Very good.
many are at, as you said, at pre-incubation level. They are refining their product. They're increasing their TRL levels, and
Yeah.
certainly we will be taking your guidance going ahead. And
Yeah.
once again, thank you for taking this session for us, sir. Thank you very much.
So most welcome, sir. Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You have a great day.
Thank you. Great day.
Thank
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for all the participants for joining us today. I thank the management of SNIST for giving us all the liberty in conducting such programs. I thank Principal, Executive Director for giving their full support in all the incubation and entrepreneurship related activity. And thank you very much, sir, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.